Last time we spoke with Josh Rand of Stone Sour was a little over a year ago. We were at Rock on the Range. It was still Rock on the Range back then. It's Sonic Temple now. And you had just taken some time away from the band to take care of your health, but you were back at this point. So before we get into anything else, just like human to human, how are you doing and how has your road to recovery been treating you?
I'm doing great. Thank you for asking. And I ended up not only had quite a crazy year last year, and I mean, obviously with the struggles with the alcohol, but then I ended up tearing up my knee and spent like the last run sitting down to do the shows, but I ended up having surgery and the knee's 100%. So
awesome. Okay, good.
I'm doing really good now.
Very good to hear. I don't know if you remember, well, I'm sure you do, but you were nervous for that evening's performance. Obviously, Rock on the Range is huge, but you shared that you hadn't been nervous in like a decade, but the last few shows you had been. I'm assuming that phase came and went.
The reality is this. I mean, I was drinking up until pretty much coming back during the day into the show and along with taking some pills. So I was pretty numb most of the time. So to come back and then like be 100% sober and in the now and not just kind of on autopilot was really that whole run in the U.S. for me. It was kind of a challenge. And then of course surrounded, here I am fighting my urge to want to drink, and I'm surrounded by alcohol from the time I get up till when I go to bed. So the whole thing was a challenge for me, but I made it through it beyond that now and thankful for the recovery.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. What we actually mainly want to talk about, though, is Stone Sour's fourth studio album from 2012, House of Gold and Bones Part 1. It has been selected by Loudwire as their rock album of the decade. So congratulations. It's kind of a big deal. Yeah.
That's awesome.
That's
Thank
a
you.
nice one. Where do you think it ranks among Stone Sour's discography?
For me, it's number 2. I'll be honest. I just think, for me personally, Come Whatever May is a very special record, and for many reasons. You know, not only do I think the flow of the record from start to finish, I think it also is a record that kind of influenced some other bands that will remain nameless. And, and it was just an exciting time in the band at that point. We got to go to Dave Grohl's personal studio and record that record, and we did the first album in Des Moines, basically locally. And so, it was just like all this, for us, it was like all this big stuff was happening. And then, of course, Through Glass became this monster song. So to me, it's just as much as the music on the record, it's hard for me not to also think of the time and what was going on. And it was a very special time for that record. Now, fast forward, like you said, with House of Golden Bones, it was a very turbulent time actually leading up to that record. And once again, I love the flow of the record from start to finish. And a lot of those songs are, classics for us regarding playing live.
Okay. What are your thoughts on concept records just in general? Like when the idea of making this grand double album first surfaced, and I don't know how it went. In my head, it was something like Corey Taylor came up to you guys and said, yeah, I want to do this dark tale of a person's inner battles, and they're trying to find themselves. He actually called it a morality play. You're thinking what besides, all right, here comes double the work?
It wasn't necessarily that way for the rest of us. Like I said, building up into the record, we didn't even know, or at least from my perspective, that we were going to do that. I mean, the year leading up to us actually going in to record that record is very interesting. We have Sean Economaki no longer in the band. Roy ends up having a stroke, and we have to cancel the rest of the touring for audio secrecy. It's very noted of the feud between Corey and Joey Jordison regarding Slipknot at that time. It was the beginning of Jim really not wanting to be in Stone Sour. So when I think back at it and I look at everything that really kind of happened in 6 months, it's kind of crazy that we went in and made that record. There was a lot of turmoil internally, and with each one of us going through our own thing personally. It's crazy. And then to now talk to you, and then the album is, voted for rock album of the decade. It's insane to me.
Obviously not something you saw happening in the midst of all that turmoil, but Yeah, many agree the lyrics, vocals, songwriting were just next level from Stone Sour at that point. And we all want to take our performance to the next level, right? Like no matter what your job is.
Hmm.
So, but were you in a particular headspace? Did perhaps the turmoil help? Did you approach it differently? What is the thing or the combination of things that made House of Golden Bones the special record it is?
I think, honestly, I don't know. We
Special
honestly
sauce.
didn't go into, I mean, we go into every record and we try to do the best that we possibly can do at that moment, you know. And like I said, going into that record, we had no intention of making that record. Looking back on it, you know, the bands leapfrog one another. That's obviously well documented. And I don't know, we went from really, we were going to record a covers EP to all of a sudden, hey, we're going to do this concept record, double album concept record in like 2 weeks. So it kind of caught everybody off guard, but all of us write when we're, you know, musically, you know, like for instance, right now I have 7 songs musically that are already done for the next record, whenever that may be. So really the credit has to go to Corey because lyrically he's the one that put all that together. He took everyone's music and wrote the story or, you know, made it work within his story. So, I mean, that side of it was totally him. As far as the rest of us, it was, for the most part, business as normal. As far as how we contributed the music side of things.
And what is that order? What is the order of creating a song for you all? Like I know Tool, just to use them as an example, they give Maynard the music complete or as complete as possible. He takes it from there. He doesn't want to have to rewrite, you know, for the most part. How does Stone Sour work?
That's basically the exact same thing that we do, with the exception, because obviously since Corey's singing, I know sometimes he'll reverse it. He'll actually structure some of the music around a vocal melody. Well, the rest of us don't write vocal melodies, so it's all about writing the music. So for the most part, it's exactly like Tool, where we hand Corey pieces of music, he works around it, or we'll suggest changes or something that might not be working, and we go back to the drawing table. And then once the song gets rough with us individually, then that's when we bring the band in as a whole and start working on stuff, and it grows from there.
So you're telling me you had 2 weeks to work on this double album. I know you spent about 3 months actually recording.
Well, exactly. Well, like I said, essentially, I mean, the truth of the matter is myself, I thought they were gearing up to do another Slipknot record at that point. So, like I said, the initial discussion before we went in for that record was actually to record a covers EP. And then I don't know, obviously, all the dynamics of what was going on 100%. Because it's not my business, but whatever was going on totally changed that from being a covers EP into being House of Golden Bones 1 and 2 for us in about a 2-week span. So that's a question for those guys.
And are you freaking out at this point? You're like, oh my God, it's 2 weeks.
We were prepared. We had all this music still. So then it was, is it good enough to be able to make this vision that Corey has? Is the music all good enough at this point? We recorded 24 songs, even though 23 only exist at this point, I mean, are available. It was like, is this stuff all up to par to be a strong enough record or records? And I guess the answer is yes.
Yeah, obviously. Where's that 24th song, by the way? Is that 24th song ever going to see the light of day, you think?
I actually just came across it, and probably will be available streaming in 2021. I'm setting up to do some really cool stuff over the next, well, obviously we just announced the live record,
Yep.
which is really limited and for the fans more so than anything. And then there'll be a special thing next year, but in between that, there's going to be some cool stuff that we do that people are going to hear throughout the next year, alternative tracks or unreleased songs from all the records.
Oh,
because we're basically, 2021 is honestly the 20th anniversary of the band, so everything is kind of gearing up towards that. I can't say that there will be a cool release next year, so...
That's exciting. We'll take it. We'll take it. As we touched on, it was recorded in a 3-month period. What are the most memorable memories you have from that period, being in the studio?
Well, what I absolutely loved about that record was the fact that we did it in Iowa. and I did it from 40 minutes from my house. So to be able to come home every day was amazing. I don't do really well in the big cities. I'm kind of an introvert, so to be able to come home was amazing. And that's the thing that sticks out to me the most, honestly. It was cool to also see the process of everything being put together and it becoming, doing like the segues and stuff like that. Because going into it, we didn't know how that would work. We had the songs, but we didn't necessarily have the segues from one into the other. But recording at home, highly recommend it.
That's funny. It's so weird because you'll talk to another musician who says, yeah, I can't work from home. It's too distracting, come home to my family, or they know that they can get to me if they have to. And a lot of people don't like it. So it's interesting to hear that.
Yeah, I'm a homebody, so.
Same. Totally get it.
As I get older, I even more so. So everyone that's going to read this, unless you've been to Des Moines, like, our rush hour traffic, I can still go from one side of town to the other in 20 minutes. I'm just saying, LA, you might be able to go 20 blocks in an hour.
Yeah, you're not going anywhere in 20 minutes in LA.
And to just give you an idea of my thought process, how I am. When we recorded Hydrograd, I literally got an Airbnb 8 blocks away from the studio on the same street.
Wow. Okay.
So I could literally be able to walk down there if I wanted to, because I cannot handle being in massive traffic. So it's all about convenience.
It's very interesting to me. It's very interesting to me, though, how people could be in hugely popular rock bands such as yourself and still be an introvert. I mean, do you feel comfortable around fans then at that point, or does it change?
I do pretty well. I've over the last 20 years that I've really kind of come into my own. It's forced me really out of my shell, but I do pretty good with the fans. I enjoy it. It's honestly, I love the meet and greet aspect of it and having that type of impact on somebody, a positive impact. Take 5 seconds of your day and you make somebody's day, week, year.
Right.
I mean, it's an amazing feeling to be able to do. And a lot of artists, I think, take it for granted and feel like it's a burden. But if you look at any of our meet and greet photos, and we're a bunch of clowns, and we have fun with it, and we want everybody to also have fun with it. Nothing looks worse than you go to a meet and greet, and I look at the prices of some of these and what other artists charge, and then you look at their photo, and it's like the band that they went to see, it's like this moment for them, and it looks like the band doesn't want to be there, and I don't get it.
Right.
So with that being said, I love the fan interaction.
Yeah.
I mean, it's honestly truly the motivating factor for me at this point.
When it came time to support the record that began in late September of 2012, what was the vision behind how the live show would support the story of the album?
Initially, we wanted to play it in its entirety. And right out of the gate, we had to cancel the opening tour because of Jim's appendix rupturing over the summer. And I didn't want to go on a tour without him not being a part of it at that point. And so the grand vision didn't really happen, and we didn't get to push the record the way that we really wanted to. And like I said, and then really stuff ended up getting cut short with that record cycle also. I mean, we built a little bit more to the live show, but not to the level that all of us really wanted to see. I think part of that is, like I said, for one, we canceled the very first tour when the album dropped, and that was huge to not do that. And then, like I said, then we ended up cutting that cycle short.
So how did the grand vision kind of deviate from the reality?
Well, I mean, the reality is this. I mean, production is expensive. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, and, we really wanted it to go, like I said, we wanted to play it in its entirety and basically do it as 2 separate sets with an intermission. And it became too many moving parts. And unfortunately, I mean, the reality is this: we're not big enough to be able to afford to do the production we wanted to do. The band is not at that level. People don't understand how much all that stuff costs, a truck and lights and props, and then you have to have all the people for it and extra buses, and it adds up really quick. Yeah. And like I said, we stumbled out of the starting gate to begin with, and it just became what it was, which then we stripped everything down and this was like, this is what we do, you know? We're a great live rock band. We know that. We don't need all the bells and whistles. So that's what we did.
It's always a compromise. Basically, every musician, I guess with the exception of like Metallica's production, which is ridiculous, fireworks, craziness all over, and actually Tools, but it's always a compromise on the videos, on the live show. It's, you know, you got to take the budget into account.
Yeah, and that's exactly right. Like nobody else wants to not put on this amazing show, but there's only one Tool, there's one Metallica, Iron Maiden, who's another. Actually, Iron Maiden might have the coolest production. But, you know, those guys are selling out arenas and stadiums. So, I mean, it takes that type of guarantee and income coming in to be able to put on that type of show. A band that's playing in front of a theater for 2,000 to 3,000 people, there's not that budget to do that.
Right.
I mean, that's just the reality. The cost for stuff is crazy. So, and it's not, like I said, it's not that nobody doesn't want to do it. It's just, you also have to make a living. And let's be honest, record sales are down. And everybody that works for you wants a piece of the pie. So, where 20 years ago, you didn't have a record company taking merch money and money from a live show, this and that. You have to make income somehow.
Yeah, understood.
So,
it's
which makes it even more difficult.
Yeah, it's every band. How did the album's concept translate to the comic book? I know it was a limited edition 4-part miniseries created by Corey Taylor, for those who are unfamiliar.
Yeah, I mean, he had reached out to Richard Clark. You know, Corey's a big comics book collector and fan, so there was a connection there. They had talked, and Corey just pitched the idea of, hey, I have this story, and this is what it is, and Richard Clark was like, I'm into it. So let's do it. And that's literally, and then Dark Horse picked it up, and that's how it came about. It came about pretty easily, to be honest. Which was cool because we didn't get to do the production necessarily that we wanted to do with that. It kind of still gave visuals and helped, in my opinion, tell the story a little bit easier than just reading the lyrics. I thought the comic book was a great visual for the story. And a cool thing to collect. I mean, so. Oh,
yeah. We slightly touched on this, but of course I have to ask a little bit more. Stone Sour just announced that they're going to be releasing their first live album, Hello You Bastards, live in Reno. That's set to drop December 13th. Why now, and why did you guys choose the Reno performance from 2018, right?
Yeah. Just like House of Golden Bones, I always try to keep, obviously Corey switches over to Slipknot, and that becomes his focal point. And my idea, starting with the cover EPs, was we need to start doing stuff in the downtime. And the idea was we never done a live record, and it would be a great thing to be able to put out in the downtime of Stone Sour. So I initially approached our TM about recording one of the shows, and I was like, it would be cool if we recorded in Russia, on the Russia tour. Well, he ended up getting the equipment early and recorded the Reno show to test it out. None of us had any idea that he had recorded the show until after the fact. So we listened to the audio. It sounded great. I mean, it was like, this sounds incredible. And, you know, there's a little bit of mess ups there, but the idea that I hammered home was, I think it's cool not to touch anything and leave it exactly like it is. Nobody does that anymore. I mean, for the most part. And let the ups be there. It's cool. And that's what we did. And I'm a huge record collector, so I basically spent like 6 months trying to put together a packaging. And the idea was, I sat with our management, and I'm like, I'm a huge Kiss fan. And people can say whatever they want about Gene Simmons, but when it comes to marketing and putting out products, they are at the top of their game in quality and sometimes price. So I was like, I'm going to use Kiss as an influence on this packaging. I will load it up like they used to do in the 70s. So what can we put in it without killing the price point? And what we came up with is, you know, a set list that all of us signed one day. You know, we did like 2,500. It took like 4.5 hours. It was insane. A guitar pick that's the same guitar pick company that makes all of our guitar picks. The pass is exactly like the pass that we used to hand out for that tour. 180-gram vinyl. Little details like the rack rail is actually embossed. And we were able to come in at a price point of $40, which I was stoked.
Wow.
It's just unheard of. I mean, a double vinyl is normally like $40 for it. So I was like, I want to not price our fans to where it's only somebody that has the extra money and make a package that's $200 or $300. I was like, the diehard fans, especially because of how we are in the downtime right now, to me, it's the diehard fans that follow everything that we do in the downtime that I really wanted to see with this item. So it was, because it's kind of the first come, first serve. I mean, 2,500 copies
Gone.
worldwide is nothing.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's gone in 2.5 seconds.
I'm extremely proud of it. That's why we did it. It was, it's just being able to keep our fan base, our diehard fan base, happy during the downtime of the band. Same with the special release thing that we'll do next year.
I had to laugh when you mentioned Kiss, because I remember talking to Gene Simmons at some point. It was when he had that box set, and it was like thousands of dollars, but he would deliver it to your door or something crazy like that. And I'm just like, yeah, $40, beyond reasonable. Very cool.
Like I said, it's more of a thank you and a celebration of that tour cycle, and we hadn't done anything really super limited. And it's giving back as cheap as we possibly could. Like, the band's not making anything. It's literally covering the cost of the items. So do production on them.
I know you're super proud of the fact that there are no overdubs on like, how common are overdubs in live albums, do you think, more or less?
I don't even want to tell you how common it is.
Really?
And because if I told you, let's just put it this way, pretty much, I don't know, over the last 20 years, I'm assuming everything's overdubbed, everything's Pro Tools and quantized and all this shit now. Unless you're an older band that hates all that stuff, it's just the standard, and it's not a knock on any of the younger bands. It's just they don't know any different. All those classic metal records from the 80s into the 90s, there's tons of fixes, and several of those I are my favorite. And I know for a fact, because I've been told by sources that in the camps that stuff was fixed. So I mean, I'll go back one other album, which is kind of into the 70s, that's considered kind of the pinnacle of live double records. It's the greatest selling live record, I think, of all time. And Peter Frampton Comes Alive. He went in and retracked all of that stuff. The drums, from what I was told, the drums were the only thing that were live.
What?
So, yeah.
How is
That's
that even
all
live?
in the studio.
How could you even sell that as live? That's insane. I guess.
But I don't know if I should have told you that, because I don't necessarily want to piss Peter Frampton off. I have massive respect for him. He's a great guitar player. But I'm just using that as an example. There's tons of other live records in the metal community that I'm not going to say because I'm friends with some of those guys, but I know was fixed.
All right.
So
fair enough.
You would be shocked. That's why we're so proud, because I mean, my guitar drops out. I ended up having one of my in-ears fall out in a song. I can't remember what song it is. And I stopped playing guitar. Guess what? That's how it is on the record.
That's as real as it gets.
Parts where Corey's vocals kind of dropped out. But guess what? This is a fill, and hey, that's how it was. Yep. That's what makes it cool.
Yeah. I could respect that. We'll end on a pretty ridiculous note, as I often do. Well, not really, but what did you think of Slipknot's latest release, We Are Not Your Kind? I assume you heard it?
I've heard several songs over the course of us wrapping up our cycle. I think the thing that amazes me out of everything is I have to tip my hat to Jay Weinberg. I think his drumming is incredible. Mm-hmm. I think in a lot of ways he saved that band. And to me, it's his shining moment. That's what I took from that record. I was like, good on you, dude. Cool. So he made the most of an opportunity, and he delivered.
Very cool. All right. Well, on that note, Josh Rand of Stone Sour, always a pleasure. Thank you so much for your time. Very much appreciated. It was fun. Appreciate it.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you.